What's up, everybody, and Happy New Year. Welcome back to the Fantasy Files podcast, where we talk about our favorite fantasy series and topics. We are your co-hosts, Spencer and Gabe, joined by our friend and recurring guest, Chris, who is pretty much a host at this point, right? I mean, he's been on so many episodes, you might as well be.
For sure.
I'm a host without any of the responsibilities.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, that's what I am. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
But today we're going to be talking about The Wise Man's Fear, the second book in the King Killer Chronicle by Patrick Rothfuss. So settle in, because I imagine this might be a little bit of a long one. Before we get into it, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons down below. It helps out our channel a lot and lets us know that you guys are interested in more content from us. You can also follow us on Twitter at Files Fantasy, or just look up Fantasy Files Podcast in the search. So we usually would talk about what we've been reading recently, but I think we've all just been reading Wise Man's Fear, right?
Yeah. It's a big book, man.
Yeah.
Well, since I finished Wise Man's Fear, I started reading Pines, from the Wayward Pines series.
How far are you?
Not very far. I think 5 or 6 chapters in, but
nice.
Yeah.
What do you think so far?
I mean, I'm liking it because it's, just the size of the book is less than Wise Man's Fear. So it's like, I'll finish this in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, it's very thriller-ish, and it's kind of violent, and it's it's kind of creepy. So I'm like, I'm interested to see where it goes. It's, something I want to keep reading after I finish a chapter, but
for sure. Yeah, I really liked that book. I think the only other thing that I've been reading lately is I got a advanced reader copy for a book called We Break Immortals. Mm-hmm. And it's basically about like magic is very feared in this world, and people are like really scared of it because the people who have magic can do like ridiculous things, like absolutely like just crazy things. Like they can shoot like invisible bullets like it's nothing.
Wow.
And so people are really scared of them. And so basically the book, I'd have to go into a lot of it to tell you what it's actually about, but basically it's about these 3 separate people that are hunting this essentially a magical serial killer kind of person, who has kind of gone off the deep end and is just leaving a ton of bodies in his wake. And so they're kind of searching for him all across this continent. And it's really good so far. I like it quite a bit.
Nice.
The other thing that I just read, and I posted a video for it today, is called The Lights of Prague by Nicole Jarvis. And it's set in a kind of Victorian era Prague, and cool. It follows the main guy is this guy named Domek Mishka, and he is this person called a lamplighter. And so when the sun goes down, he goes around the city, and there's a whole company of them, but he goes around the city on his route, and he lights these gas lamps as he goes so that the city can have light during the night. And also in this world, vampires exist. And so part of his job, nobody really, like the common people don't really know this about the lamplighters, but the lamplighters are also vampire hunters.
Oh.
And so, as he's lighting his lamps on the way, he's going through alleys and searching the city out for vampires that are, drinking from people and stuff. And so he kills them with like hawthorn stakes. And it's very cool. I really feel like fantasy is finally kind of taking back the vampire genre, because I like vampires a lot. Yep. But I really don't want to just read Twilight or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I feel like vampires have been so, Hollywoodized, and they're such a pale shadow of like what they used to be. Even in the Anne Rice novels, like, you know, those were closer to like real, like actual scary vampires. And so I really enjoyed The Lights of Prague because it brought back like these scary vampires that are like, they can move like super, super fast, and they're just like, you know, a hairpin away from like taking your throat out.
They don't sparkle in the sunlight.
Yeah, they don't.
Dude,
they don't sparkle in the sunlight.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like that Twilight and those a couple other ones are like third cousins of true vampires. Like they're
Oh,
just
sure,
not,
yeah.
they're not it. They're not.
Bram Stoker would be rolling in his grave.
Yeah,
if he knew
Oh, I
that.
know, right?
exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, it was really good. And it did have, you know, I really don't mind this trope. I think it can be good sometimes if used in the proper way, but most of the vampires in this world are, you know, like scary vampires. But then there are a couple that we meet, that are vampires who don't really want to be vampires, but they have this like desire for blood, and so they're kind of trying to balance those two things. And I think Nicole Jarvis did it really well, where it did not, in no way, shape, or form did it feel like a Twilight, like, oh, I'm, you know, not going to eat humans or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was like kind of a conflicted vampire that is still a monster. Like they're still like terrifying,
Right.
And so yeah, it was a really good book. It's probably a shorter book. I think the audio book was like 7 hours, something like that.
Oh, that's
Not bad at all.
Yeah. All right, so let's go into our spoiler discussion then.
Yep.
All right, so if you haven't read Wise Man's Fear, I recommend you turn back now, come back later when you have read the book and can enjoy a spoiler discussion. So spoilers in 3, 2, 1. You've been warned. All right, so to kind of start this off on a high note, something I was thinking about, Chris, do you have your 10th anniversary nearby? Your 10th anniversary edition?
You want me to grab it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
That's
All right. I got it.
Okay, so if you open up that cover, it like on right inside the cover is quote about like,
perfect. Beautiful.
I walk paths by moonlight and all that.
Yep.
Can you read that?
Yes. My name is Kavoth. I have stolen princesses back from sleeping Barrow Kings. I burned down the town of Traben. I have spent the night with Felurian and left with both my sanity and my life. I was expelled from the university at a younger age than most people are allowed in. I tread paths by moonlight that others fear to speak of during day. I have talked to gods, loved women, and written songs that make the minstrels weep. You may have heard of me.
Yeah, that's such an epic quote.
Yep.
And then I have one from this book that is kind of similar, that I thought went well with it. I am the best musician you will ever see or meet from a distance. I am edema rue to my bones, and that means I bleed red. That means I breathe the free air and walk where my feet take me. I do not cringe and fawn like a dog at a man's title. That looks like pride to people who spent their lives cultivating supple spines. I love that. I love these moments where he goes off and he lets his like legendary, I don't know, like his trooper's tongue, like he just lets it like roll off of him.
Yep.
I really love those moments. But all right, so since Gabe and I have already had a video, and we'll talk about it as well, but since we've already done this once already, Chris, what were your initial thoughts for Wise Man's Fear coming straight from Name of the Wind?
Yeah. Well, it's a continuation of Name of the Wind in the strongest sense, I think.
Yeah.
You know, the Name of the Wind is sort of just a massive winding journey, and it kind of takes you, you know, just between set pieces, right? First he's in you know, with his troop, and then it's set in the the city whose name always escapes me. Traben, right?
Oh,
No.
Tarbian.
Yeah,
Tarbian, that's it.
Yeah.
Yes, Tarbian. Yes. It takes you to Tarbian and then to the university. And so the wise man's fear is very similar where, you kind of stick to all these different set pieces. So, it starts off in the university and then we move on to Ventus at some points and then the forests north of Ventus
Yeah.
and then the Fae and then we make our way
Yeah.
to Adem. So it's just this huge, massive journey with, these huge changes of setting and these massive chunks of story. And each one is great and kind of different in its own way.
Yeah.
But I loved this book. I was kind of thinking, as I was getting through it, I kind of thought I was gonna like Name of the Wind a little bit better, just because I really enjoyed the university time and kind of learning about Kavoth's backstory. But this was just as enjoyable, if not
Right.
more. It kind of expanded the world quite a bit, right? I mean, we learned a lot more about the world, I felt like, in this book. We learned, Rothfuss is kind of spoon feeding us. It's just like tiny little pieces at a time of,
Yeah.
the Chandrian, the Amir. I feel like I learned just a little bit more about it. And after watching some theory videos, I now realize that there's a lot more there. It's just it was difficult for me to uncover it on a first read through.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, there's so much content. There's so many great scenes and settings and characters in this second book. I enjoyed almost every aspect of this book in terms of the setting and the characters. It was immensely enjoyable. So I loved getting more of Kavoth. And
awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have any, having just come out of this for the first time, do you have any questions that you think people who have read it a couple times would be able to answer?
Well, a lot of the questions that I had, I now have some answers to because I was no longer afraid of spoilers, right? So I went and looked on the internet and the Reddit, and watched some YouTube videos, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, but my initial, obviously, I had some serious initial questions out of the gate, like, what was in the Lackless box?
Yeah.
What key did Ari give to Kavoth? What does the mayor know? Like who does the mayor know that's an Amir? Who obviously who's Denna's patron? Big questions like that. It's just
for sure.
Yeah.
Dying to know. But
and you got to see some theories for those.
Yeah. There are some serious theories out there on the YouTube channels. And I'll be honest, on my read through / listen of Name of the Wind, kind of when they were talking about the stories of
Lonray.
Lonray, and then they also talk about like Telu, and and then the second book we get the Creation War. When they talked about those scenes in Name of the Wind, I didn't pay attention as seriously as I should have, because I thought, oh, this is like about long dead heroes.
Same.
Whatever. And then in this second book I realized that it's all connected, and I was like, oh, okay, I gotta go back and reread those passages and look them up online. And it's like, so I watched a whole video on the Creation War and what that's all about. And so things like that.
I think the first time through, I definitely the first time through I read it in print. And when I got to that point where Scarpy is telling the story of Lonray, I got like a couple paragraphs in and I was like, I'm just going to like skip this whole thing. Like I'm like, I do not care about like this old story at all.
Right.
And then, doing the second read through with the audiobook, I was still like just kind of vague on it. I was like, okay, I kind of get it. But over the next couple read throughs, I'm like, oh, dude, this is actually like a really awesome story with Lonray.
Yes.
And there's so much that kind of connects with it, like Denna's song and a lot of stuff with the Chandrian, like Lonray being Haliax. Dude, it's just, there's a lot. And so it's definitely one of those things where I really feel like no matter how many times you read these books, you can always get something new. Like even
something more.
Even on this reread, I've read so many theories and watched so many videos and stuff. And even on this reread, I was making my own connections and like,
wow,
oh my gosh, like that means that. And like I actually learned this from a video the other day, but I'm pretty sure the Lackless box is Jax's box that he caught the moon in.
That's what I watched / read as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Some people seem to think.
That is genius. I don't know how I never made that connection before. Like it seems so obvious now. But I just think stuff like that is so cool. Like every time being able to get something infinitely new.
But that also begs the question, what's in Kavoth's thrice locked box as well?
Yes.
So I have a theory that it probably isn't my theory. I'm sure I heard it somewhere, but I'm almost 100% certain that it's his name.
Yes.
That he locked his name away.
Or at least part of his name, right? Or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why he's not able to, because all of everything that he is attached to that name. And like right at the end of Wise Man's Fear, he asks Elodin, like, what happens if somebody changes their name?
And freaks.
Elodin's like terrified. He's like, no, like,
who
did that? Like,
that's right.
That's so messed
up. Was it Fella?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that, maybe Quoth is either trying to hide from the Chandrian or the Amir and can be found by his use of magic or naming or whatever. And so he has his name in his thrice locked chest, and that is like kind of cutting off his sympathy, naming, his music, all sorts of stuff. I'm sure it's connected to a ton of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then it's like, how does he open it?
Yep.
Like he's there at the end and he's got these two keys and he's working with these two keys. And then he like puts his hands on it and he's like listening to it. And so he's like trying to get like the name of this wood or whatever, or just that's in general. And then he whispers to it like open, and it's not doesn't. Opening. And so it's like, man, so he basically stuck his magic in there, but if he doesn't have that magic, how can he open this chest? And of course, like we don't know if that's the case, but I feel like it's a pretty good working theory. That he's locked some part of him away in this chest. But anyway, let's get away from some of these theories.
Okay.
Let's see. So we got the prologue, and it was spoken in that video that you guys watched. He was reading the prologue there, and I'm kind of like, all right, well, I hope it was worth $300,000 that people donated to get the prologue. Like,
well, it goes to charity. So
that's
what.
It does. I know,
cause, man.
I know, but I'm just like, damn, like people are willing,
frothing at the mouth. We're ready.
Yeah, exactly, dude. I'm sure they would pay a lot more if he set the bar higher. Would not surprise me.
Exactly. And so I was just like, man, that's so surprising. $300,000 for that prologue. We're getting another chapter in, I believe, February. We're getting like the first,
I
either
heard
the
that.
first chapter or something.
And they're gonna like voice act it and stuff to.
Yeah.
That'll
Yep.
be cool.
So that'll be really awesome. I hope that comes sooner than later. Because the prologue was like, it was great, but it was just like the silence of 3 parts kind of epilogue and prologue thing that we get. The interesting thing about that prologue, though, was that it was talking about this mess that's in the basement, and like all this acid and gears and iron and all this stuff. And so it seems like Quoth is trying to open his chest, because at the end of, or not right at the end of this book, but about 3/4 of the way through this book, Bast is talking with Quoth up in his room about how they would get the chest open. And Bast is like, what about acid?
That's right.
And Quoth is like, you'd have to be like really, really careful. And so, it's interesting then, for the very, like, literally one of the very last things that happens in this book is Quoth trying to open his chest. And then the prologue of the very next book is there's acid, there's brass and iron and all these different things. It's like, oh, I wonder if he's trying to get that chest open,
Yes, I think that's likely. And that's one of the questions I'm very, very curious about, is why does he need it? What's in there? I mean, as you said, there's theories, his name, but
yeah. Oh, real quick, what did you, since it was your first time through, Chris, what were you thinking when Quoth came across the false edema rue?
Oh, that was honestly a great thing to experience for the first time.
Yeah. Wasn't that fantastic?
Yeah, my first feeling was elation. I was like, oh, this is awesome. Some other edema rue. And they did the whole water and wine thing, He's like, would you like some wine? So he's like, no, water's fine. He's like, are you sure we got wine? He's like, oh,
Yeah.
I loved that tradition. I was so excited to see other edema rue and how, they were going to play music for him and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, all right, well, I've got something for you. Here's these 2 young girls that you can take back to your tent. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, we picked them up from the town we just passed through. Yeah, we took them from the town we just passed through, and you can go have your way with them in your tent, both. And I was like,
right,
what the fuck, dude? Yeah, I was so confused.
And Quoth is going along with it, and he's like, oh, great, I want both of them.
Yeah. I was like, wait. I mean, I know he was playing something, but I was like, what? And then,
go ahead. Sorry.
It just got progressively more what the fuck, because then people start puking and getting sick, and then Kavoth like goes and starts cutting their throats. And I was like, Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah.
Yep. Vicious.
Yeah. So it's just like, oh, this is great, to what the fuck, to what the fuck.
Yep. That's a good scale right there. That's a good scale.
But he goes all John Wick on him.
Yes.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, like even the old lady, dude, she's like broke her leg in the forest. I was like, fuck, man, that's messed up. But yeah, I mean, good to find out that they weren't edema rue, but
yeah,
pretty rough otherwise. I just have a couple things about that entire scene. So like, I think I've read this book 3 times now. I think this might be my third.
Yeah.
Maybe second, but I'm pretty sure it's the third. And so reading this scene this time around, because I knew it was going to happen, right? Like I knew the premise of what was about to take place. And then just watching, like, it almost seems like to me, the second that Kvolf like really saw them, maybe not the second, but he knew, because there's scenes like where he went up to the stew and he's like, Mama, whoever, can I have a taste, right? And he actually poisoned the soup then.
Right.
Or like, hey, can I have I walked up to the tap and poisons it. That was before, any of the songs, any of the stuff, like any of that. Like he knew what was going on almost right when he walked up to the troop. Like he was like very, very aware. And I thought that was really interesting, because last time I didn't realize that. I thought he just like, after they pulled the girls out, he's like, oh, these, this is not right. And then I poisoned the food. But no, like he poisoned them like seconds after he even saw him, pretty much. Like he knew what was happening. Yeah, he knew what was happening.
Shit. Okay.
I know. And I didn't realize it the first time or even the second time. And now this third one, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes way more sense. Because I was confused because I was like, why did it take him so long? Like, because in some places, like they did stuff that I knew wasn't right, even before they brought the girls out, and so did both. Like you could tell. So I was like, all right, well, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, like what, and maybe this is accurate. We haven't seen enough of the Rue to know for certain, but I don't think the Rue carry like weapons and
No,
stuff.
and
Like,
they would never hold a sword up to you. That's for sure.
right.
Like nobody would ever just come what are you doing at our camp? Blah blah blah. That's
Well,
that. Yeah.
I don't. They have like hired guards that travel with them for protection. I think I'm pretty sure. But yeah,
Oh,
like that was mentioned. I remember that in
Yep. No, you're right. I would agree. They definitely do. But it
just
just
for like
seemed like a
protection.
little
But yeah,
over aggressive the way that they did it, right? Because it was everybody. Like when he
yeah,
walked
right.
up, like it was like, who the hell are you? And then they both pull out swords and then yada yada yada. And until he turned around and showed the loot in his back, like they were like
right,
hostile, which like
right.
I would feel like the Rue, one family, like they're so friendly to everybody. Like doesn't seem like that would connect very well. But
Yeah, I'd be curious to know because it doesn't really tell us like at what point he figures it
no,
out.
yeah.
And it kind of leaves it up to us to like really watch the
Infer.
situation and try to figure out like at what point they really gave
Yeah.
away that they weren't a Rue.
Yeah.
And so I've always thought that that's like just one of the most interesting parts in this book because
Yeah.
the first time I read it, I read a lot of like really dark fantasy and like grim dark stuff. And so my very first time through this book, I was like, when Quoth was like, oh, I want both of them or whatever. I was like, oh, maybe that's just how this world is. Like,
Yeah.
maybe it's just like,
No.
But then you're
so,
like,
like,
Quoth would never do that though. Like
Yeah.
you
yeah.
had to have known.
And that's what makes it so confusing is
Yeah.
because like maybe this happens in this world, but I haven't seen Quoth do anything
Yeah.
like this
Yeah.
up to this point. And so then when they go into the tent and right away, like as soon as they get into the tent, he's like, yeah, I poisoned everybody.
He's like, and let me help you guys type thing. Like, don't be scared, I'm not
Right.
here to hurt
And
anybody.
actually, just one thing I wanted to say is there was some point that made me some minor detail that made me think when they are sitting around the campfire, and I think it's one of their first interactions, like after they accept him into the the circle, they they're talking about playing music, and he asks for a certain song.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
They
yeah.
say
They
we
didn't
don't know that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
And that made me think, I'm wondering if that is when he knew that they weren't real.
Yes, could
And
have been.
I don't
Interesting.
remember where that that scene took
Well,
place
I
in
mean,
terms of him
Yeah,
it
that's a
was
good
one of
point.
it was one of the first things. Like
That's what I
after
thought.
they did the water and wine thing, they sat under the fire and asked, can we play a song for you? Or no, I think he plays a song for them first.
He does,
And then they're
And then
like,
he
oh,
asked
let us
for
play a
one.
song for you. And he asked for one and he
and they
says,
don't know. They're like, we
they don't
that
know.
one.
He's like, I've never heard that one before.
That's a good point.
So I'm
that's a good
wondering if
point.
right then he's like, okay,
It would make sense.
something's
It
up.
would make total sense.
Okay, so let's go on to the next thing here. All right, so we know things are getting bad. Just to kind of start all this out in the frame narrative, we see that things are getting bad. We've had the Scrael, we've had all these other things happen. And not to get too far into the theories again, but people think that it is because Quoth has let Jax out of the Doors of Stone. He has let
Oh.
him into the real world while trying to defeat him. And that's causing all these crazy beings to come out, like the Scrael and demons and stuff like that.
See, yeah, that theory is something I just probably would never have, come to the conclusion of on a first read through. It's
Oh
just
yeah,
like,
for
yeah,
sure.
no.
At the end of the book, I would have been like, well, who's Jax again?
Yeah,
Like
third read through. Third read through.
I mean,
and
to
never
be
came to that
honest,
conclusion.
it's like I wasn't honestly, that's kind of how it was as a first read through.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like I this mercenary lady told a story about this guy that captures the moon, and I was like, okay, maybe not super relevant, but
Right.
that's what's amazing about these books is that there's just
Yeah,
so much
yeah.
buried in there
Yes.
in terms of
yes.
details.
Exactly. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, that's fine. That's it. Yeah.
Well, and that's what's so interesting is that she tells this story that seems like this kind of this random story, but Rothfuss makes a point of telling the story not just twice, but 3 times, because that first time we get like half the story, and then Daydan interrupts her and she's like, I'll tell it tomorrow if you're quiet.
That's right.
And then she tells the story all over again. And then Quoth goes out to the Fae and she tells him the
Valorian
story
tells him,
of
yeah.
of the moon. And so I think like it's when things like pop up, I think Rothfuss does a really good job of like showing us these things multiple times, and sometimes he only shows us things once that are going to be really important. But like the whole thing with Lacklist, like that has come up multiple times, like
It's
something
true.
is going to be really important with the
Yeah.
Lacklist. And other stuff like that. And that kind of leads into like this this author section that I have here. And I just really love how Patrick Rothfuss really trusts his readers and doesn't hold their hand. Like at no point is he really like over explaining this stuff to us. But like neither is the narrative like intentionally or largely obtuse or confusing.
Right.
Like the first time through, it'll just seem like a story, but the more you read through, the more you like catch these things, and they're not like intentionally hidden. Like they're all right there. And the thing I like about this is that means that he trusts his readers to reread and to really like dig in and like make these connections. Something that a very, very small example of this, that was like one of the things that I just saw throughout reading this is Quoth goes to a restaurant looking for Denna sometime after they had met and she like ran away or whatever. When she's not at the restaurant, you know, it doesn't say, and then I went looking for her all over Imre or whatever. It was just like Denna wasn't at the restaurant, and then you would be amazed how many inns and birding houses are in a small town like Imre. And at first it's kind of like, okay, like what did that have to do with Denna not being at the restaurant?
Mhm.
And then it's like, oh, that means that he went all over Imre and looked in every single inn
Right.
and boarding house. And I just think stuff like that is so cool. Like he really trusts us to like make connections. And that's not like, you know, that's not like a theory connection or anything. That's just in an everyday sentence in this book.
Yeah, there's
But
lots of little examples like that throughout the book.
yeah.
And I mean, it is nice, right? It's good to when the author assumes that you have some ability to make connections. Like,
Right. Yeah.
you know, we've talked about this before, but some of my complaints about some TV shows is when they just handhold you through everything. Like, remember this scene from last from last 2 episodes? Like, here it is again. Here's the flashback, and now here's
Right.
this happening. So you get it? Like, you get the connection? It's like, yes. Okay.
Exactly. And I also think this is a weird connection to make, but I think there's an interesting connection between the story of the boy with the golden screw in his belly and kind of King Killer as a whole, because Quoth says that his father liked to give him stories with no particular endings, leaving Quoth to speculate on what happened next, which really is exactly what Rothfuss is doing with us. And we're sitting here speculating like that's a 1-to-1 connection right there.
That's true.
And Quoth says, he says, it's the questions we can't answer that teach us the most. They teach us to think. If you give a man an answer, all he gains is a little fact, but give him a question and he'll look for his own answers. And I'm like, man, like as much as I hate waiting for the 3rd book, and I have no idea if this is something that is intentional on Rothfuss's part, I wouldn't put it past him. But, you know, like that's what we're doing. Like we have all of these, like we have like half of all the information. And over the past 10 years, we've just been sat here to think on it and wonder on it and come up with, there's hundreds of theories out there, and they're so good. Some of these theories make such good connections. They're so convincing. And it's like, man, that's really cool. Like the way it's almost like, I'm sure on some level Rothfuss knew that and like put that into the book.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. And the speculation is part of the joy of being involved in reading these series, and part of the beauty of these series as a whole. I mean, I remember back when I read Game of Thrones in college that I loved, sometimes to detriment of myself, just sitting in class on Reddit, like reading theories about Game of Thrones. Like
Yeah.
who's Jon Snow's mother, things like that, who's gonna hold the Iron Throne in the end. I mean, I love that kind of thing. This theory crafting is incredible, and it's fun to read the things that people can come up with and discuss the questions with your friends. And it's like I haven't done this since, like, again, Game of Thrones, right? There hasn't been something else since Game of Thrones that made me interested in theory like this and trying to figure out what's going on. I just really hope that Patrick hasn't written himself into a corner and that there is a plan, because apparently George R.R. Martin said he accidentally killed off a character that he needs, and so now he doesn't know what to do.
Oh, no.
Is that true?
Yes, it's true.
Yikes. Yikes.
I remember 10 years ago, I was like, oh, Winds of Winter is going to come soon. And now 10 years later, and then it's like, I read, it's like, oh yeah, he accidentally killed off a character that he now realized he needs, and he doesn't know how to get out of it. Like,
oh my God, that is crazy.
Yeah.
That sucks. Yeah, I think that's a lot of people's fear about Patrick Rothfuss, is that he, because people are like, how is he going to finish this up in one book? And he says that the third book is going to be about the same length as Wise Man's Fear.
It has to be longer.
It's got to be longer, like
50, 60 hours, man. Come on.
Yeah, dude. I just don't know how he's going to do it. But my dream, my dream would be to wake up one morning and check YouTube, and Patrick Rothfuss has decided to go onto Daniel Green's channel or Captured in Words channel without telling anybody else. And just like halfway through the interview, he's like, by the way, Doors of Stone releases this November. Can you imagine? Can you imagine like how much that would break the internet?
Yeah.
And just the look on like Daniel Green's face, like, you're announcing this on my channel.
that would be incredible.
That would be so nuts. Because I think more people should do that, because that's what Jim Butcher did with the last couple books that he put out. He went on to Daniel Green's channel.
Oh, really? Like, wow. Yeah. Okay. I didn't know that. I have to see that.
And we were waiting for a Peace Talks announcement. Peace Talks was supposed to be the most recent book, and we're waiting for like a release date to be announced and stuff. And he just went on to Daniel Green's channel, and he's like, yeah, Peace Talks is going to release in August, but there's not just one Dresden Files book this year. He's like, I'm releasing 2 Dresden Files books this year, one in August and one in October. And it was like the most like surprising, like mind-blowing thing. I was just like, I remember watching that and be like, we're getting 2 books this year. Like, dude. And this was after waiting like 5 or 6 years for a book. And so I love stuff like that. I would love it if Patrick Rothfuss would just go on some random person's channel.
Oh yeah, that'd be so much fun.
That'd be so sick. Okay, so I was talking to somebody recently who I was trying to get into King Killer, and they're like, oh, I have the book, like I'll read it. And I'm like, no, you gotta listen to the audiobook. And they're like, I don't really like audiobooks. And it really made me think, like, I feel like if you don't listen to the audiobook, you're really missing like a really good chunk of what makes this so Good.
Totally agree. Did you tell them that you had a friend that used to be exactly like him or her?
Yeah, I
Because
did.
I mean, that was me. I was like, I don't really like audiobooks that much. And then you're like, no, dude, trust me. I was like, right. I mean, yeah, I have a credit on Audible. Like, okay, sure. And now
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, I love it. Again,
Yeah.
I tend to do hybrid, right? I get
Yeah.
the book in print and then I do audio, and but I mean, especially with a book as large as Name of the Wind or
Yeah.
Wise Man's Fear. I mean, first of all, not to even mention just the convenience, right? You get in the
Right.
car, you throw it on, right? Whenever
Yep,
I'm driving, I'm
exactly.
listening. I'm
Yeah.
listening.
Exactly.
So I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I'm cooking in the kitchen. I have a little Google
Throw it
speaker,
on.
just
Yep.
throw it on there.
Yeah.
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 Exactly, dude.
Um,
Exactly.
so I love
Totally.
the convenience. And then, I mean, you are so correct that the audiobook is part of the experience. I mean, just
Yeah.
like the narrator does such a good job of characterizing each individual. I mean, it's
Right.
amazing. No one sounds the same. No one sounds the
Right.
same.
Yeah.
And I think just the way that I picture certain characters would be different. I'm not saying
Right.
worse or worse or better. Maybe. I mean, I'm not really saying either one, but the way I picture characters would definitely be different if I just listened, or if I just read the book. Right. I mean,
Right.
I
Because
guess one,
that's good.
just real quick, just one major character that I think really was done well in from the audiobook narrator's standpoint was Tempe, the Adam
Oh
person there.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Nick Podell had a perfect voice for Tempe, and all of the Adam. It really lent they sounded like people who lived way out in the
Very,
middle
very
of
far away.
nowhere,
Yeah.
and it really felt like another culture. And that's really what adds to the whole experience. I think the thing that really made me think of this too was I was like, how would I picture Quoth's voice if I hadn't heard the audiobook?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, man, I cannot imagine him sounding any other way than he does in the audiobook. Like, it's just perfect.
It
Yeah.
is. No.
Should we talk about some of the world building?
Sure.
Sure.
Gabe, what did you think of, we kind of bounce around a lot in this book. We see the Ademre, we see Ventus, we see the Fae. We go out into those woods a little bit.
Yeah.
What was your favorite part of the world to explore? Or your favorite like culture, whether it was like the politics of Ventus or it was, the other stuff in Ademre?
Yep. Absolutely. So I would say, and this was something I was going to say, like pretty much when we started about, Chris mentioned it about how it's almost like there's separate stories, right? They're the same stories, but you've got the university, and then you've got Mayor Alvaron, and then you've got the woods, and then the Fae, and then you got Ademre, right? Like there's these separate like sections of the story that are all obviously part of the same thing. With that said, I would probably say that my absolute favorite would be Ademre. That entire thing with Tempe and him learning about their kind of their culture and how they are, and learning that they're not this magical people that hold words in and use it as fuel and this and that. And then of course learning how to fight and all the rest was really cool. But then probably my second close would be definitely the politics of Ventus, right? With the Mayor Alvaron and him working around the court and helping him, and all these rings, and this hierarchy and this way that things have to be done. It's very proprietary, very proper that you do these things correctly. Otherwise, there's so many different, because even when Braden's there, like he talks about like, Kvothe asks him about the bone ring or maybe the wood ring is when he gets it, and he's like, well, it could mean a farmer gave it to you, or it could mean this or this or this or this. There's like 7 meanings that it could be. And you're like, holy crap, like that's crazy. And it's like that for almost every ring too. Like it depends on what it says, who gave it to you, when they gave it to you, this and that. So
if they ask for it back or not.
If they ask for it back or not,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And so I thought that was really very intriguing and very well done. Yeah, so those are probably my two favorite. Of course, the Fae, when he meets Florian is also super cool, and seeing the Cathay and how that plays into the rest, and of course his Cloak of Shadows is incredible. But I would probably say those two, and then my close third would be the Fae.
Yeah.
Yeah, you used, I don't know if this is your words, but the series is very scene centric. Who wrote that?
Yes.
Was that you, Spencer?
That was
or-
Spencer.
yeah, that
Yeah,
was me,
yeah,
yeah.
that was Spencer.
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of what I didn't read that until now, to be fair, to be honest, when I talked
Yeah.
about it earlier, but it's a great way of describing it is, these whole individual environments, settings, stories
Yes.
that
yes.
piece together to form, a tapestry, so to speak.
Yeah,
Right.
That's a good word. That's a good word.
Yeah. So I was gonna say I really enjoyed the Edemre part as well. A lot of that was driven by just me really getting intrigued by Tempe's character when they're in the it's the Elb or the Eld?
Yeah,
Elb?
The
Eld
Eld,
was,
yeah.
yeah.
The Eld, yeah. I think probably that forest was probably my favorite setting. I think.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Nice.
debating in my head because it was. I mean, I really just like the change of scenery, and I was
Yep.
like, what the hell is Kavoth doing? Just like trooping
Yeah,
around in the
yeah.
forest with some mercenaries and like a tracker, and
Yep.
this weird dude that like doesn't talk ever. Like I was like,
Right.
what the hell is he doing?
Yeah.
And it just turned to this whole exciting adventure. And then I started to get drawn in by kind of the mystery of it, like
Yeah.
where are these bandits? Why can't they find them? What's going on? What's happening? And I guess we'll get into a little more of that in a little bit. But so that whole kind of air of it really drew me. And I just liked, they're traveling, they're in the woods, they're hunting down bandits. It was just kind of a fun, exciting story. I liked the inn that they went to, that they stopped in.
Oh, yeah.
Where Kavoth meets the red-haired
The
chick. Or
redhead.
no-
Yeah.
yeah, and-
Fiery.
yeah, and they kind of interact with others there, and so I really liked that. Probably honestly it's so funny. I told Spencer this, is that I finished this book probably about a week ago now, but already the first half of the book feels like a distant memory because so much happened
Yeah.
in the latter
Oh,
half
yeah.
of the book, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
But in the first half, as always, I love the university scene in Imre, right? I mean, I think we spent probably, would you guys say, about half the book there in that?
Probably. Yeah.
Probably about, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And I love, I love that scene. I mean, it never got old, even though we spent, again, maybe close to half or a third of the book in Name of the Wind in that same setting, right?
Right.
Probably less though, actually, than a half. But yeah, I mean, I love the university town, the feeling, the interactions. It's nice, it's nice seeing Kavoth interact with his friends, the professors. There's always some fun antics.
Yeah.
And actually, probably one of my least favorite one was the Fae with Felurian. Actually,
Oh.
I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but
No, I mean it's opinion based.
I didn't actually enjoy the Felurian thing as much.
Oh.
I don't know what it was.
So you're saying you don't like hot naked women in
I
the
know that
woods.
sounds like that's not exactly what I'm saying, but yeah. No, see, let me spin this. It's like,
Yeah.
I found that scene offensive. Okay, it was.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's terrible.
I like women so much that it was,
Yeah.
No, I mean, it was fine, but it went on for a long time, and I just,
Yeah.
there was a point where I was like, all right, Kavoth, when are you gonna stop sleeping around with this fairy and like get the hell out of
Get
there?
back to
like,
the real world.
yeah, it's like, this is great
Yeah.
and all, but you're not learning shit here, right?
Yeah.
She's like,
Yeah.
at first he's trying to learn magic, and she's like, nah. You're like, I'm not gonna teach you anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but then actually, that was about halfway through that Fae part that I kind of was like, okay, it's getting, come on,
Yeah.
Kavoth, what are you doing here? And then he meets the Cathay,
Yeah.
Oh,
which
yeah.
was terrifying.
Yep. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I wanna-
So
because
that
it
kind of
was
made that kind of
go
made
ahead.
up for it, to be honest.
Yeah.
So with that Florian scene in mind, what did you two think of the moment where, Kvoth first gets there and he's doing this thing and he's getting just attacked by Florian's, lust powers, for lack of better words, or
Yeah.
whatever it was. And then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
like he like really focuses and goes into spinning leaf or whatever it was, and he actually speaks like her name, and he knew in that moment, like I could kill her if I needed to.
That
But
was
the
Yeah.
world would be less beautiful without Felurian. I was like, dude, that's pretty powerful, man. Like there's a lot to
Yeah.
unwrap there. And I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that part, like how he made the decision and he knew that like this wouldn't be good if I did this. And it was very self-controlled, and I just enjoyed that.
yeah, that's a good point. That was quite an exhibition of power that he
Yeah,
displayed
yeah,
there.
very much powerful. It was crazy.
And I guess for me, being, I'll say, I'll fall back on being a first time reader. I don't quite fully understand what went on there. What
Yeah.
exactly happened. I think he
Well,
told Elodin that he called the name of the wind,
yep.
right?
And then Elodin, so Elodin unpacked it and basically said, no, you didn't call the name of the wind. You actually spoke Valorian's like deep name.
That's
And
right.
so then he had power over her in that moment, but he
That's
chose
right.
not to use it. He chose not to do anything with it and just
Interesting.
let go of it. So
So
that was
that's a really good example of the power that names
of
have
names.
over
Yeah,
things. So
Yeah.
that's
exactly.
potentially why he locks his away. Okay.
True that. True
Right.
that.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Really good point. Yeah. I kind of had forgotten exactly what had happened there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome scene, and it shows us like how powerful Quoth is, but also it makes me wonder if magic is, I mean, I think we kind of see that magic is easier in the Fae. Like she's using moonlight
Yeah. Yeah.
to sew the thing. And so I wonder if that had something to do with why, because he's already a really good namer. He's like a natural namer. And then he goes into the Fae and he just has it like at his fingertips, basically.
See, I have to argue that though, because
Oh.
just imagine the distress, in the scene. And again, I don't remember exactly what was said or what happened, but his mind was like being torn apart. Like he was like ready to lose reality and lose his like self-knowledge of himself. And it was so like, and even Elodin kind of said this, you were in such a spot that like your subconscious mind or your whatever sleeping mind like came forth and gave you what you needed to survive that moment. And so and it could be more powerful in the Fae or whatever, but I feel like even if it was in the real world and that happened, he still would have pulled that out and been able to do it.
Yeah. Very good. So for me, I think as far as the world building, my favorite places we went and the little bits of lore that we got, man, yeah, I think I have to agree with you guys that Edemre was really great. I remember not for some reason I remember not liking it that much or just being kind of bored. But this time through, I really appreciated what I don't think I've ever seen a fantasy culture like this, like a society crafted this well. And Rothfuss just puts in so many little differences and ways that they live and ways that they talk and all these different things that make them them. And it was just so perfect. Like I really loved just maybe not like the events and like the chapters themselves, but I just really loved this culture and I really appreciated how much thought went into creating these people. Just little things like Tempe not looking at the eyes, he's always looking down at the hands. And Quoth is he's like frustrated because he's like I know I don't have to tell you how frustrating it is when somebody won't look you in the eyes when you're speaking to them.
Right.
And I just imagine that frustration and how like annoyed I would be. And then you find out that it's because he's watching the hands for the hand signals that display the emotion that's usually on the face.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think things like that are so cool. And of course, some of it was infuriating, like the man mothers.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I get so mad every time I read that.
Yeah, I read that scene. It made me just dislike the ADEM
like,
people. I was
come
like,
on now.
God.
Come
Like you
on now.
actually believe that it takes a man to make a baby? I was like, okay.
Yeah. But I think, one of the reasons that Rothfuss might have put that in is because I think it's him trying to show like, look, these people don't have all the answers either. Like they're calling these other people barbarians, but they don't even know how babies are made. So it's not like this, Ademre is like this Shangri-La where, they have all these like mystic answers and they're like the wisest people.
True.
I think it's a really good way of showing, they believe in stupid things just like the people across the continent believe in stupid things, like some like the people in Ventus are
Right. I was gonna say they're very superstitious.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, speaking of Ventus, I really liked the what you guys were talking about the rings.
Yep.
And all the differences that they present. I think that is, I don't know, it's kind of like a political game.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
And
sure.
you're like kind of trading these rings back and forth. And if you wear it, it means one thing. If you leave it in a bowl by the door, it means one thing. If you display it, it means another.
Yep.
If you send it back, yeah.
If you get an iron ring, that means that they look down to your station. And I just thought that was such a clever way of kind of, I guess, simplifying the politics a little bit. Like, I'm sure, like, if you're actually maneuvering throughout the court, there's a lot of complexity to it, but it helps the reader to understand, like, okay, gold, silver, iron.
Yeah.
And there's kind of these tiers to it. And then they introduce like the bone ring from Snape.
Snape,
yeah.
Wood, of course, where
dude.
Yeah, wood is bad.
Yeah, wood is bad, like he got from Maelwyn.
It's simply not done. I mean,
yeah, it's simply not done.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I really loved that whole thing. I enjoyed our time in Ventus. Going through for the first time, Chris, was that a roller coaster ride for you where you're like, oh my God, like the mayor likes him. Oh, the mayor doesn't like him. Oh, the mayor likes him. Mayor doesn't like him.
Yes, it was. I mean, I was constantly, it was a little frustrating because, I was like, okay, but like, look what Kvothe has done for you, man. Like, come on.
Yeah.
But, it was, and actually it was very nerve wracking because it got to a point where I thought Kvothe was in serious trouble.
Yeah.
Like I was
sure.
It's like after he accuses Codicus of poisoning the mayor.
Yeah.
And then the they do the whole thing with the birds and they're not dying.
Right.
At that point. And I was like, and like the thing is that it happened so naturally and kind of in a way that I didn't really foresee. And and what I'm trying to say is that, Kvothe felt like he was on top of it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's like, I could actually I'm like steps away from being executed or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And like I could just, it's so natural for me where I was like, I could see it happening. It was just like, I was like, my God, yeah, he's screwed. Like he got himself into a really bad position. And I felt that, it was great. And then of course, it works out. I was like, oh, relief. And then he gets sent on this mission. I was like, okay, that's kind of weird and good. And then, Kvothe starts thinking about it and it's like, yeah, why am I being sent on this mission? It's like, well, wait, yeah, maybe he's not like in his favor as much as he is.
Yep.
And but in the end though, I think the mayor, he did do right by him by, when he said like, in the end, your blood matters little to me. I was like, okay, that's good. What I'm talking about after he's returned, the whole Edemaru thing comes up with his wife. And, I thought the mayor did. I
agree. Yep.
I mean, I think that's the kind of the best response you can expect from a guy like that in terms of.
Yeah.
He rewarded him well and was like, you know what? Your bloodline doesn't matter to me so much. You did well by me. So here's what I'm giving you.
I thought it was really fair. Like fair would be the word that I would place. Yeah. That whole scene.
Right.
Like it was very fair. Like he earned it. He gave it to him, even though there's like, my wife hates you. I can't do this. Like you got to go. But here's everything I can give you. Just cool.
Yeah, and even though Kavoth mentioned that he's like, I almost felt like I think he did mention he felt like almost he was owed a little bit more because of what he
Yeah,
did. It's like he
yeah,
literally saved the dude
yeah,
from
for
being
sure.
poisoned. He got him
Yep.
his wife. Like
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
he
he-
definitely was worth way
he
more.
did. I will say though, Kavoth probably lost some cred when he took that low ball, that cheap shot at the mayor, where he was like, I think your wife is just mad that a Rue,
Can get her to bed quicker or whatever else when
yeah,
she left.
got
Yeah.
got her to bed
Yeah.
quicker than
Yeah.
one did her sister. It's
Yep.
like,
Yep.
oh, bro.
Yeah,
What
that was
an
bad. I
idiot.
thought for sure he was gonna snap. The first time I read that, I like cringed. I was like, oh, this is it. It's over.
This is
It's
bad.
over
And
right
even he
now.
knew.
He's
He's like,
gonna die.
I knew I had gone too far.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly. Exactly.
it's like, oh boy, yeah.
So we're gonna get into some of the finer details of that in a few minutes here, but let's jump down to our magic system discussion. Did you guys I kind of have them all listed here,
Yeah.
or at least most of them. What did you guys have any specific favorite parts of the magic from this book? Anything that we got
Okay,
to
yeah.
see?
So for sure, one of my favorite scenes, I guess that has to do with magic is when, right, Kvolf starts getting hit with malfeasance, right? And he's trying to figure out what's happening, who it is, and he of course thinks of Davy because she's got his blood and he's got a loan with her. And of course she takes blood as part of her payment, or not payment, but I guess security reasons, right?
Yeah,
And
deposit.
so when he gets to the boiling point and he's like, I gotta go, I just have to check and make sure that my blood is secure. I have to make sure. And he goes down there and he talks to Davy and he's like, you have to let me see my blood. And of course Davy's like, no, that's not how this works. Like, I'm not gonna show you the blood. And they go back and forth and argue, and then all of a sudden Kvolf pulls out, right? Didn't he have a moment, or did he just pull a binding out? Like, did he like cast?
He had a moment.
Okay, he had a moment over. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So he pulls out the moment and tries to lock her up, and Davy's like, you have no idea who you're messing with. You don't even
Yeah.
know. And breaks it and pulls out the heat eater, or the poor man's something.
Poor boy, that's what
Poor
something?
boy.
Yeah,
poor
the poor boy.
And
Yeah, that was
basically,
interesting.
it was
Yeah.
interesting. And she says, like, you have no idea who you're messing with. I have the Alar, this like a rushing streamer, something,
Yeah.
along those lines. And I was like, dude, cause I knew she was powerful, right? Like I knew she was strong because everybody talks about her, 8-way binding, this and that. She's very strong. But that moment right there, I knew that she would beat him. Like she would kick his ass if she had the chance, right? And so I don't know. I just
Yeah.
thought that was cool. It was a battle of wills. They were back and forth, and Davey like almost snapped and really pulled out the straws on that one. And I was like, I just enjoyed the scene. I guess it was kind of a cool little
Absolutely.
half
Yeah,
battle.
I mean, yeah, we haven't really. I mean, there's been dueling, but we haven't really seen like a
Some serious
real
like,
sympathy
yeah,
battle
exactly,
like that. So that was
exactly.
Yeah.
that was fun to see.
Yeah.
And I also, yeah, like you said, I liked how just how it kind of fleshed out how you defend yourself against sympathy, like how a
Yeah.
sympathist defends himself from sympathy in the creation of I'm blanking, guys, on the
The gram?
device. Yes,
The gram, yep,
yeah,
the
thank you,
gram, yeah.
yes. Creating that was interesting.
That
I
was
think-
sorry, real quick. That was a
Yeah.
mission too. Like he had to do so
Yes.
much to get that
Yes.
gram.
Not easy. And I was so sad when it was just lost at the bottom of the ocean or the sea. I was like, damn it.
Yep. I know.
All that work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Apparently Rothfuss has talked about doing a short story that shows us that trip on the sea and everything
Oh,
that
cool.
happened. Because
Good.
that's really the first time.
Where there's a huge break in
Yeah,
time,
there's just a
right?
huge like
Yeah,
skip.
yeah.
And it's like, oh, I was on a boat and we got wrecked, and then I showed up on shore.
And it was like how many months was that? Like it was a lot of time,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
From when he left to where he
Yeah.
actually got to Ventus. It was a lot of time.
That actually, yeah, that I'll say mildly annoyed me. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
what? We don't get to hear
Yeah.
about it. And
Yeah.
he's like, it's not relevant to the story. I was like,
Yeah.
is that Rothfuss saying this or Kavoth? Like,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
'cause
sorry, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, I feel like Rothfuss maybe he probably had I mean, again, I'm just speculating, but maybe he had a draft for it and then realized he had to cut some stuff down. 'cause
Yeah,
of
could be.
how
Yeah.
Yep, could
lengthy
be.
it was. And it's like, well, I guess I'm gonna just say it's not
This
relevant
got
to
to
the
be a
story.
separate thing, or
Yeah.
yeah, not related, or just a separate book in itself. Because he could probably make a 20-hour book just out of that stuff, probably.
Yeah. The other one being the other time he did that in this book after that was the trial in Imre.
Oh
Or no,
yeah,
maybe that
yeah.
was
Yeah.
before the wreck.
It-
But
yes, was it? I think it was actually.
It
Yeah,
was. It was before.
it
Yeah.
was. Okay.
is before he left. And that was another thing where Quoth was like, I don't need to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. If
Yeah,
you want to
that's
know
right.
more
That's
about
right.
it, then look up the public records.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
he's like,
That's right.
I don't really care to talk about it. And so I wonder if Rothfuss just really didn't feel like writing a court scene or like, or if he just like, he's like, there's no way this is all gonna fit in this
Yeah,
book.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I could kind of see, like, yeah, the logic of leaving it out is just like, how interesting could you make it? I mean,
Right.
proceedings, like the way he described it, I bought it. I was like, all right, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
it's gonna be
I was
boring.
totally fine
Lots of
with it, yeah.
proceedings. And,
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the thing that is so interesting about these books is, there's a lot of time. There's a lot of chunks of time in these books where nothing is really happening, and Quoth is kind of like, things are happening, but it's just like a day-to-day life of Quoth. But at the same time, it feels like there is no fat on the bones in a lot of ways. Like it feel like, I don't know. I don't really feel like there's a whole lot of like filler. Like, even though there is, it doesn't feel that way, if that makes sense.
It does. It does.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really describe any of it at all as filler. I mean, it's all relevant to building up who Kavoth is and how he becomes this innkeeper. Like, all of it is
Right.
relevant into forming that character. Like, how do we get from where he was to where he is now? It's like, yeah, it's all part of the journey. So
Right.
I mean, yeah, I never felt that way either. I was just, everything was done in a way that it was just, I was always eager to hear it.
Yeah.
Be a part of it.
So what about the lightning hitting the
Yes.
tree?
Okay.
Him
I was
falling
gonna
down?
say we have to talk about that
whole
moment.
scene. Yeah,
Yes.
that entire battle we need to talk about.
That was
Yes.
crazy. That was absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, during that whole scene, I was just like, "What?
Yeah,
I mean, that,
yeah, me
like-
too, dude. Even the my last read through, I was like, holy crap.
I mean, yeah. First of all, he's like, "Oh yeah, we killed this guy," and he's like, "Fuck, how do I fight this guy?" Oh, I'll use this body. I'll bind.
And he killed like 8 of them with that
Yeah.
body.
Yeah.
Like 8 people. It was
Whispers
insane.
of binding, uses the body as some kind of sick
Yeah.
blood magic
Yeah.
vomit. Just
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, dude.
Oh man.
I was like, can you imagine if the professors caught wind of that?
Oh yeah, it would be.
I mean, he would be.
He'd be executed almost. Like that's like so bad, so bad.
Oh my God.
I mean, he might be. I mean, he would be expelled for sure, and then they
Yeah.
might. I mean, they might whip him to death. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
that, I mean, that was so
crazy.
brutal. How it was just described. It was just like, plunge the dagger into the man's eye, and like one of the guys is like on the ground, like, oh, it's like, Jesus Christ,
But
blood
then-
magic.
Yeah, and with that said though, in that scene, in the battle, you have to. The way that I think about it was like how hopeless it seemed at first, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
it seemed absolutely hopeless, outnumbered, this, that, they have a whole camp, and then Kvothe like decides like I have to use sympathy and I'm gonna use it to kill all these people, right? And so then, just like you said, like he starts like just like pushing this knife into the body over and over again. He's killing all these people, and I'm like, dude, it's just wild to think about. That's just, it's so powerful. Like it is so like almost overpowered,
About
It's like that-
malfeasance in the highest degree.
that's what a
Yeah.
sympathist can do if they really get angry.
they-
Like
if
they
they
really
really
can.
want to.
Yeah, it was really wild.
And
Yeah.
then the whole lightning part, I'll admit, I didn't fully understand how that happened. I tried to kind of like do some reading about like what exactly he did but I was worried about spoilers at that point. So I never
Yeah.
really figured out how exactly that lightning was called down.
Well,
But
so he like he made like he talks about it like he made a galvanic binding between, he shot the arrow into the tree, and so that bound the tree, and he put something in the ground. I don't know if it was an arrow or something else. And
Something to
basically
act as a lightning rod.
exactly. And he just like he bound the lightning, and like made the link, and then the lightning shot at exactly at that time, which he even said later. He's like, I didn't think that would happen. Like, I didn't think
Right.
the
I
lightning was
remember
gonna
he
come down
wasn't sure if that was
right at
like
that
luck
time.
or
And
yeah.
he's like, I might die. Like, I don't know if this is gonna kill me or whatever else, but I have to do this. And it was, yeah, it was crazy. It confused me for quite a while, probably actually until this read through, when I really listened to that part, and I was like, okay. So he really thought about it though. You know, it was a very scientific approach to the to what he did basically.
And we've seen him bind wind before when he was on the road with Abernathy or Abinthy.
When
And
yeah.
and he binds the wind to his lungs, or the air in his lungs to the
To the
wind or
wind to
whatever.
make it move. Yeah.
And
That's true.
and then he like completely messed it up because he was pulling air out of his lungs.
Yeah.
But you know, so it's not outside the realm of possibility that he can bind a force of nature like that.
Yeah.
The theory that some people have is that he didn't do anything, that it was Martin praying to Telu.
Oh.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
Telu brought the lightning down because right before, like literally like a sentence or two before that happens, I don't, so the Cathay says it in this book, but it also happened in Name of the Wind, when they killed his family. Right before they left, they were like looking around as if they heard something in the trees, and they leave. And you know, the Cathay tells him that they were running from something.
Yeah.
And then right before the lightning strikes the tree, Cinder, who's down below in the camp, he's like looking around and he like hears something, and he takes off and probably, you know, portals his way out or whatever.
Yeah.
So, you know, what if they're running from Telu? Like, what if Telu is chasing, you know, like what Telu is being called down by Martin, and that's what made the lightning come down. Because, you know, the thing is, we learn so much about these connections, these sympathetic connections that he can make.
Mhm.
And you know, even if something is very like another thing, it takes a lot of energy, and you don't get like a huge result from sympathy. It's like diminished the more things are different, right? And so it's like, would he really have been able to like bind that much lightning to this tree to like explode the whole place?
Yeah.
And so
I think it would have, I think it would have killed him too, because
yeah,
again, it's like, I think it's a little bit nebulous
Spillover.
how exactly sympathy works. I mean, we're kind of given the framework, but it's like, remember they talk about slippage and stuff
Yeah,
like that,
slippage,
and
yeah.
He even
binder's
says that.
chills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He says that the slippage would be insane. He's like, the slippage would be unreal with what it, you know, what he's attempting to do. Basically, he's like,
Right.
it would be insane.
So yeah, there's possibly something going on there.
Yeah.
But then again, for me, it's like, so Taylor's real then, right?
Yeah.
So Taylor, God is
I-
real and
yeah.
angels are real. So
Yeah.
how does that fall
I-
into play?
I think that Telu is real in this world.
Yep,
I
would
think
agree.
I think that Telu is a real thing. It really comes down to like, Telu might be real, but how much of what we know about Telu is actually real? Just like how much of quotes like overarching legend is real, like the stuff that you hear in the taverns and
Yeah.
stuff. And so I think that's what it really comes down to. Like all these things that are spoken about exist, but to what extent do they exist? But and any other magic things that you guys like?
Yeah, so I just want to talk about a scene specifically with between Bast and Chronicler and
Oh yeah.
Kvothe. And I think this was after, I'm pretty sure it was after Kvothe got beat up by the two guards that came in.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but there's a
Yeah, it
moment
was.
where Chronicler's like kind of challenging Bast, and he's like, you don't know me. And so during this, he hits the table, right? When he learns about what happened, and the leg splinters and breaks.
Oh yeah.
And so, and whatever else, and Chronicler's like challenging Bast or something, and Bass is like, you don't know who I am. Like, you don't know me. And he hits the table and the leg comes back. His hand bleeds and then his blood turns into a crow that flies around the room and explodes. And I'm like, dude, that
Nuts.
is Fey magic. Like, that's crazy. Like, it goes beyond the boundaries of any
That's true.
sympathy,
I forgot
you know,
about that.
anything that you can comprehend, right? Like, it is out of the realm of the scientific. It is into the realm of the imaginative. Like, it's absolutely crazy. I thought it was
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Any other pieces of magic, Chris, that you liked?
I'm just in my head. I'm still thinking about Yelish knots, man. I
Yeah.
don't.
Well, I think we should talk about just last thing, we should talk about the artificing that we
Yeah,
see.
the arrow catch,
The
dude.
arrow
That was
catch
yeah,
so
is
sick.
incredible.
The
So that was
bloodless guys.
the
They did the
bloodless,
bloodless,
exactly.
yeah.
Yes, and that was, mind you, named by a Loden, Cloth the
Yeah.
Bloodless. Like, I love
Yeah.
that whole connection. I thought that was very cool
I
and
like that too.
very
Yeah.
well done. So that's incredible. And then of course the Graham we see, you know, that protects against sympathy and all that. So I think the artificing, you know, should get a honorable mention in
Oh,
this
yeah.
magic
No,
system
it's
for
yeah.
sure.
It's great to see that, like, a
Yeah.
magical wood shop, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Machine
that's what it
shop.
is.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
Magical machine
Exactly.
shop. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is cool. So I guess, would you guys be artificers if you attended the university?
Man, I would love to try it, but I don't know if I could have the mind for it. Like
Spencer's good with his hands. You could
Yeah.
probably be an artificer.
I think-
there you go. There you go.
I think that's probably what I would be the best at, but I would
Yeah.
really want to be like a sympathist.
Yes,
like a
that's what I was
master
gonna say. I
sympathist.
would
I was
love
gonna
to learn
say, yeah,
sympathy.
sympathist as well. Naming is a little too out there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know if I have what it takes, but
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
sure.
naming's wild. That's like a whole different breed of cat right there.
I'd probably
Different
just
breed
go
of cat.
study rhetoric with Master Hemp. Or
Yeah.
whatever his name-
Yeah.
Master Hemp.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about some of these characters. I'm assuming we're gonna start with Quoth.
Yep.
So the first note I have here is that I feel like in this book, Quoth has learned something of patience and holding his tongue in a Demre, which is a very important character moment that I think we're gonna see maybe pay off more in the third book. And I feel like a lot of his growth as a character, a lot of him kind of becoming an adult has come from a Demre, because he's had
Yeah.
to learn that he can't just smooth talk his way out of everything, because, sometimes he's not able to speak the language.
Yep.
And so there was no way for him to use his charm and use his
His
cleverness.
trooper's tongue.
Yeah, to
Yep.
really ingratiate himself with these people. Like he had to do the work and he had to be sincere.
Yeah.
And so like one of my favorite moments is when he plays his lute for Vachette.
Yes. Yes.
And he tries going to her immediately to apologize, and she's like, no, like I know you are clever, like I know that you have like a trooper's tongue, like you can't just come to me immediately and apologize. Like I
Yeah.
want to see that you're not this
That you mean it.
person. Yeah, like I want to see that you're not this horrible person that I think you are right now.
Yeah.
And so then he shows up and like doesn't say a word, and like he doesn't talk at all, and just like puts his cloak up between them and like plays music for her.
Yeah.
That was a
And-
really good scene.
Yes, it was.
Oh man, that
Yeah,
is
man.
that is a
Very
really good
powerful.
scene. Yeah, it definitely had me tear up a little bit.
Yep.
I don't know, what do you guys think about kind of just Quoth specifically, but like his journey throughout this book and kind of how he's grown in whatever ways you think?
You know, I would say that, and I'm gonna bounce back to the first book, right? Like we see Quoth, he's young, something awful happens to his family, you know, they're murdered, forced to be homeless, and kind of this like very street rat, not like in a bad way, but I'm saying like he was forced to be like the street rat for a long time. You know, he's homeless. He had to learn the ins and outs of what he can do, what he can't do, this and that. And of course he makes it to the university and whatnot. And then in this book, we see more of that, but we also see, and again, just like you said, like Ademre is a perfect example of growth in Kvothe. Like it is a perfect example of how he kind of overcame what he thought was right and not necessarily wrong, but what he thought was there, and he had to grow so much past it, to get to the point where he is now. I don't know if that made any sense. It did in my head, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, sure it did. Yeah,
I,
go
no, I
ahead.
think so. I think it did. Yeah.
Oh man.
I guess I'll try to expand. Is that just a lot of, one of his major strengths is his ability to talk his way out of certain situations, or his knowledge, his ability to easily retrieve information, provide information, and generally silver tongue, right? Talk his way
Yeah.
out of things. And in a Demre, that's he can't rely on that because A, the language is hard for him, and B, people use their hands to talk, right? So he's learning this actual speaking language, and he's got to learn on top of that this whole language with his hands. And so this is just another difficult challenge that, as in typical Kvothe fashion, he doubles down on and dives in. It's like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna learn this. So that was definitely a major growing moment for him and a defining moment. It just, I don't know, it's just another interesting gem to add into his whole character, just because having that experience. They always kind of the cliches, like people tell you to travel, to have experiences and stuff like that. It's like this is both traveling, right?
Yeah.
Is young traveling and to have these experiences. And I think that having that experience in Demre is an important part of his character. But at the same time, his flaws I think are still on full display here, as they were in the first book. I'm willing to be swayed on it, but I think my first inclination is to say that his flaws are still fully there. I mean, he nearly gets himself killed in Ventus, right? Because of his overconfidence in his handle on the situation.
Sure.
And that's something that we saw in the first book. Also, again, the whole thing with Davy, when he was so sure that she was the one committing malfeasance against him, right? And he was proved to be wrong in that. He almost royally screwed up in that regard as well, right? So I still think this, I remember, I think Spencer said something along these lines in the first podcast in Name of the Wind, is where Kvothe thinks he's several steps ahead of everyone, and then it's like, actually you're not.
You're not.
Right,
Yeah, exactly. And just really quick, in that scene with Davy, when he confronts her, like the facts that he had accrued in his mind were they seemed so sound, right? Like they seemed like this makes sense, at least to me.
I was
like
convinced.
I was like,
Yeah,
exactly. I was
definitely.
convinced. Even this read through, like I was convinced, and I think that is a very powerful writing tool when you can, you can absolutely convince an audience of something that isn't true. Like is pretty cool. I don't know. I thought it was pretty incredible. I really enjoyed that.
Definitely. And I think, that kind of goes along with his, he's very quick to decision. Like he's very quick to decide, this is how I feel, and this is gonna be it. Just like with Denna at the end there, the Fella and Sim and all them were talking about Quoth's kind of relationship with Denna, and Fella's trying to give him advice. And he's like, oh no, like I don't love her. Like I'm not like in love with her. Like I'm very fond of her and I care for her, but I'm not in love with her. And everybody just kind of looks at him like, all right, Quoth, like just shut up, dude. Just oh my God. And so, it's kind of this interesting thing of he makes these decisions and then is like, I'm not going to move away from this decision in any way. And so that's kind of one of his flaws that I saw in this book.
Yeah. Someone has a really good quote here about pride and folly. They go together like the clasping of two hands. Is that
Yes.
Coat that says that in the, or
I honestly can't remember. I think it might be Quoth near the end.
okay.
I can't
Okay.
remember. I can't remember.
Because that's, I mean, yeah, that's a great point. And then it says his sword is named Folly, and
Yeah.
Kvothe is very prideful. So
Yeah.
that's something that we'll probably see in the third book here. Is
Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
his pride is going to get him in more serious trouble than it has so far.
Yes.
Although I was pretty sure it was going to get him in some serious trouble in Ventus at the end there
Yeah.
for a second.
yeah.
But
Me
for
too.
sure. I think a big kind of a character moment for him in this book is he's learning kind of the subtleties of things. So I love this callback to Eladin asking Quoth to describe blue. And this is a problem that Quoth has had throughout the entire series. He needs to like define everything and like put everything in a box, and he believes that he can understand everything. And he's asking Vachette and Tempe what the Lethani is, and is having trouble with this abstract concept. And then Vachette asks him to describe love. And he argues that he can in fact describe love.
yes.
After several failed attempts, she says this is the nature of love. To attempt to describe it will drive a woman mad. That is what keeps poets scribbling endlessly away. If one could pin it to the paper all complete, the others would lay down their pens, but it cannot be done.
Yeah.
And I just really love this like recurring theme of him just like trying to understand these subtle concepts, and he just can't get it. And it kind of seems like near the end he's made progress. And then also this is combined with the arrogance that he can understand things completely. Like he believes that like no matter what, given enough time and enough energy, I can understand something completely, but that's just not true. And it's part of him growing up, and is a great theme of him having to accept things simply as they are, having faith in abstract things like religion, the Lethani, love, the color blue. And you know, we also kind of see this in the Fae when Felurian is using the moonlight to sow the shade, and he's like, but how does it happen? Like how like what makes this happen? And she's like, hey, can you hand me that moonlight? And he like grabs it without thinking
for a
he's
second.
Like, he's like, oh my god, I have it. And so I just love this idea of this. I just love this idea that he can't grasp the subtler things, like the things that you can't really explain, especially because he's like, you know, he's not like a poet, but he's this bard. Like music is his thing. Like of all these kind of, he sings of all these abstract concepts like love and, you know, I'm sure magic and these big stories and stuff, but he still can't understand like the things that can't be explained, if that makes sense. Like he still can't like wrap his head and around things and just admit like, okay, I don't understand this, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
That's a good point. It's interesting because, you know, magic in Kavoth's world, like sympathy, artificing, it is a science, right? It's something like, you know, in other fantasies, magic is, you know, it can be hand wavy and it can be kind of, you know, an abstract concept. But in this world, in Kavoth's world, sympathy is a science. Everything is explainable. You can understand, you know, the more you understand, the better you are at it, right? But yeah, so it's interesting to see how he reacts when he comes up against types of magic that is more subtle, isn't quite as logical as say sympathy is.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the moonbeams, the fey magic, right? And then, but that's also why I think he's struggling so much with naming, right? And is because it's naming is definitely more of a subtle, abstract type of magic.
Yeah, it's not something he can understand, or, like relatively, like he can't quite grasp it. And I don't think anybody does, like from what I hear, it's like something
Right.
that's there, but it's not understood crazy well.
Yeah, it's yeah, you have to have that correct mindset, which
Yeah.
Elodin is constantly trying to instill in
Yeah,
him. But
yeah.
Right. I really liked this moment that kind of goes along with that, where Quoth finally understands like what Eladin is trying to teach in that class.
Yeah,
That that was just like so absurd.
Yep.
And finally he realizes, I think it's when he's talking about the screw, the boy with the golden screw in
Yeah,
his stomach, about how, having a question is way better than having an answer, and it pushes you and it drives you. And then he's like,
yeah,
oh my God, like that's
I
what
get it.
Eladin has been trying to
Yeah.
teach us. Like he wants us to ask our own questions, and he was trying to drive us forward into, what he's trying to drive us forward to ask questions and to, kind of figure things out for ourselves and put that drive in us.
Mhm.
I really liked that final understanding, because at first you're like, yeah, what is going on with this class? Like, this is really weird. And, some of it comes down to Eladin just being weird, but also like, in some ways, in Eladin's way, it makes sense,
Um,
All right. Do you guys want to talk about Denna?
Oh, of course we do.
Did
That is important.
anybody's thoughts on Denna change in this book?
not really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's the
I still hate her.
yeah.
Yeah, man, I wanted, and I remember when I first read this, I don't know if either the first book or the second book, but I was talking to Spencer about this over text, and he asked me about Denna, and I said, you know what, I think at one point I said I hope that they would get together. Do you remember that,
Mhm.
Spencer, when we
Yeah.
talked about that? And now that has definitely changed. I don't hope that they get together. But from my first like experience with this series or with these two books, uh, I think that, so the first book, like she was kind of mysterious, right? Like she was the thing not gotten. She was kind of far off, and she was like intriguing because of that, When on the
Right.
second book, it was very much like we found out a little bit more about her. There was some more depth, but it was just the same shit over and over again. Every freaking time. Like over and over again, the same toying, the same
Same
games,
excuse.
this and that. And so like I lost my respect for her in this book, like at least especially this read through. Like I lost my
Yeah.
respect. I'm still very curious, like I want to know more about Denna and where she came from and why she's there and who, the patron is, as well as I'm sure you guys do. But my like initial like very close to home thoughts are like I've lost most of my respect for Denna. Really. That's
Yeah.
about all I can say.
And that's why I was saying in the last episode, I'm like, man, I really wish that Quoth and Fella had gotten
Yeah,
together. I
yep,
think
and I
that would have
remember,
been a
yeah,
great,
yes,
even if it was like a temporary relationship until he
Yeah.
finally got together with Denna. I'm like, I just want him to be with somebody. Like I want him to be with like Fella, because she's
Yeah.
like she's like a good
person, like,
partner,
yeah,
good
yeah,
Hey,
for
don't
sure.
sleep on Sim though. Sim's a good guy. He deserves
Sim's a
her.
good guy, and that's true. That's true. That's
Yeah.
very true.
Yeah, you're like, man.
Come on, I like Sim. I think Sim and
I
Fella
do,
would be good
yeah.
together. Although I would agree. I think Fella and Kvothe would have been a pretty killer thing. But I think that Kvothe needs to, and who knows, this may happen, but I think he needs to come to the understanding that Denna is out of his grasp. Like as much as he tries, as much as he reaches, like she's further than he can reach.
So is she though? Because that, I think, see, I feel like Denna loves him in the same way that he loves Denna. And even though she's like horrible and playing all these games, like I think that she really does like care for them, but neither of them are willing to just like say it and accept that they like each other and that they care for each other. And so they keep playing these games back and forth.
Well, yeah, and
because
I
both
don't
are
know.
afraid.
I
well,
don't think so. I
okay,
don't.
yeah, I agree. Go ahead. I've got more to add, but you start. I think
Well,
we
I
might be
was
in the same page.
just real quick. I was just gonna say I don't think Dena's in love with him. I don't. It's like she strikes me as the type of girl that loves attention. I mean,
Oh yeah.
and
Oh, for sure.
Kavoth is this. I mean, he's a loyal guy. He's a kind person, kinder to her than she thinks she deserves, right? She's
Yeah.
got an insecurity issue, right? She doesn't think she deserves better than, whatever she has with Master Ash, whether she's actually getting beat or not, right?
Yeah.
And Kavoth is nice to her, but in the end, it's not what she's attracted to romantically. It's like I think he's severely stuck in the friend zone. And
Yeah, and I would probably second that. I think that Denna is so much more wrapped up and enamored with her potential future with Master Ash, and let's say, and so we've heard that she is getting beaten, right? The Cathay said that, like, that's not a lie. She's getting beaten by Master Ash, but
yeah,
she's
but there's some speculation on what the Cathay was talking about, because if her patron is Brayden, what if he's beating her in a game of tack?
well, but what about the bruises and all the stuff they said? Her mouth was bloody. He hit her in the face. Like,
yeah,
there's more.
they do
There's
they do
more
say
to that
they do say
Mhm.
than
physical
just that.
things.
There's no just beating. Like, she was hurt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, they also say maybe he's training her to fight.
Yeah.
okay, and see that could make sense too.
Speculation, though, we don't know.
Speculation,
Yeah,
exactly,
speculation.
and
Yeah.
hopefully we'll find out. But I feel like that she is so much more enamored with the potential of her future, right? Because I would think that if she was just willing to give up and say, I love you, Quoth, let's go away. Like, would that make more sense? Like, if she
Yeah.
just like, I love you, let's just leave. But
Yeah,
no,
but she doesn't think that way. Like,
and
she's
because she's a runner, because
Yeah.
she's like, she is not willing to like settle down very much. She's not willing to like
Exactly,
let
yeah.
somebody so far in. She has to like, she has to be in absolutely every control. And when somebody else like Volth comes in, like that is letting go of her control. Maybe not all the way, but enough to where she's like uncomfortable, when he
Yeah.
comes in and does this thing. And that's why she's got, she leaves, she's got a man for 2 days, gets a ring, and then she's like, oh, too handsy, leave, go, and it's just 75 different names and all this,
Yeah.
it's definitely a control thing in my opinion.
So
Yeah, no.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say I have to agree with Gabe. It's just like the type of person that she's shown us to be so far
Yeah.
in this series. I mean, if she loved Kavoth, I mean, I know she doesn't exactly know this, but she wouldn't be with this sworn enemy, Ambrose. Like,
Yeah.
she would know more about Kavoth, and
Right.
she would ask about his life, and she would know about Ambrose and
Yeah.
know that he's his sworn enemy, and she doesn't end up on his freaking arm. Like,
Right.
I don't buy it that she's in love with him. She has some sort of ulterior motive,
Yes.
Yeah.
and
That's a
she's
good point.
after something, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
I
no, I know.
actually, I said my opinion of Denna didn't change, but it got worse than this
Yeah.
book. Like,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
more I talk about it.
Yeah.
Definitely. And that's a popular theory. Like, what is her motivation with Quoth? Like, why does she always show up at the right times?
Yeah,
Like, why is
for
she
sure.
always where he is? He goes out to Ventus for some
she
reason.
is.
She's out in
Yeah.
Ventus.
Yeah.
And then even when he comes back from Vent, he goes to Tarbean for a few days just to see the
There
old
she
sites.
is.
There
Yeah,
she is.
exactly.
Why?
It's
It's
like
very
uncanny.
weird. Yeah.
Super suspicious. And then of course, she's with another gentleman there. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, hey,
every single time we see Denna, it's with a different gentleman. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, every single time.
So, you guys have swayed me, but what do you
I thought you hated Denna, man.
Yeah.
Like, what is why are you team Denna?
Yeah.
so I'm not. I think
Oh.
it might be being misunderstood what I
Okay.
mean.
Yeah.
there is a place in her heart for
Quoth.
Quoth.
Absolutely.
How
I would
she's
agree.
using that is not anything that I like.
Malicious. It's malicious for sure.
And so I would ask you guys, what do you think about this quote? It's when they're at the river and she's got the rock or whatever. And she's telling Quoth the story of the rock. And she says, it's been thrown once and remembers the feeling of falling. It has trouble staying the way most stones do. It takes the offer that the water makes and moves. It takes the offer the water makes and moves sometimes, but when it moves, it thinks about the boy. And so I get this overall idea that Quoth is always kind of on her mind. And we get this moment in Traben in the last book where she's like drugged out of her mind and telling him all this stuff, and she's like, she's like, I think about you way more often than you think about me.
Yes,
Like
that's
look
true.
I look for you way more often than you look for me. And she's like, someone like you would never care about someone like me. And so I get this feeling that she's kind of got this, like, she doesn't think very highly of herself, even though she kind of manipulates and works her way into these circles that are kind of above her pay grade, I guess. But I get the feeling that she ultimately does not think very highly of herself.
Yeah.
It's true. No, for
Yeah,
sure.
for
She does
sure.
not.
Yep. Would you say though that that quote is wonderful? Would you say that quote is like, would you say call that maybe like a more of a comfort piece thought for her? Like when she's, like I can think about Quoth and feel okay even when I'm doing this type thing. Like
Probably.
I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm saying like, like sure, she likes Quoth, she thinks about him, but let's say she's like, I love Quoth or I like Quoth, love Quoth, whatever, but I'm still doing this thing. And so when I
Yeah,
get
in the
beat
end, it doesn't matter.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, she can, and I guess that's what I was trying to say originally, but like she may love Quoth, but what she's doing doesn't physically
Okay, yeah.
show that. Like
Yes.
there's things that she has prioritized above
Over,
him.
yes, okay.
And if she loved Quoth in the way that she was like ready to settle down, she wouldn't be entertaining all these men
yeah,
who
for sure.
buy her jewelry and stuff.
Yep.
What
So she loves him as a friend.
I don't know. It's so
I would
complicated.
I would think that you're on the
It's
mark,
always
like
complicated,
where
yeah.
he's like perfectly friend zoned, and who knows if that'll change, but it sounds like he's very much friend zoned and he's very much okay with that. Like even talks about Fella, although we know that he loves her and we know that he's in love
He's
with
not
her.
okay with it though. He
No,
says that,
he's
but
not exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, he's not okay with it. But it's like something that like he's kind of accepted, right? Because he knows like that he can't catch her, he can't get her.
Well,
As far as
it's
we
also
know,
because he's prideful because he doesn't want to be like every other dude. That's just like, I
that's
love you,
true.
Dena. It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
you
for sure.
get in line, right? It's like
Yeah,
you and
yeah.
the whole
He
court.
wants to be the closest. He's like all these people. There's a quote somewhere where he talks about all these men that come chasing and fondling,
Yeah.
and he's
Yeah,
always
he
the
says
one
he
that's
doesn't want to be
there.
another. He doesn't want to be another
Yeah.
cow-eyed gentleman, like
Yeah,
just fawning
yeah,
after her.
exactly.
And he's like, so
But
it's a pride thing for him as well.
yep.
I'm looking for a quote, but why don't you guys what do you guys think about this conversation that Dena has in Ventus with this girl who is attacked by this man, and Dena like has her knife and she's got him in the alleyway, and then they sit down at the bar.
Right. And they talk about whoring, right? Prostitution.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I think it's probably a just a little glimpse into Dena's unfortunate past and the things she had to do before she was more fortunate.
Yeah.
Potentially, right? I mean, it's kind of the way I took it. I don't know.
No,
Yeah.
I would totally agree. That's what it sounded like when she was talking to this girl. It definitely sounded like coming from a way of experience, like coming from knowing the way that this worked and the outcomes that can be made from different, areas or different paths that you can take in that, and whoring, I guess would be the thing. And this girl's, is like lost, she's very lost. Like she doesn't know what to do. Then is very informative and tells her like, this is how this has to be. Like, you can do this or you can't do that. And she even says, she's like, even the fancy horse is still a horse. Sooner or
Yeah.
later, you're going to be ridden. Like,
Ugh.
like
I
it doesn't
love
matter
that
the way you
quote.
do it. And they talk about being a maidservant. She's like, no, you don't have the accent for it. Like, you can't do that and this and that. And so it makes me think that she's well aware, or like you
Yeah.
said, like has been involved or has done those things and knows exactly what they're about, exactly what they're like because she's been there. Or she's somehow, it makes a lot more sense that she's actually done it, you know, like that she's
Right.
been in that situation.
Absolutely. So I found the quote I was looking for, and this is such amazing prose, by the way. So I forget at what part exactly this was. It was sometime after Quoth has played. It was sometime in Ventus, and Quoth says, "So I did not try to win her and contented myself with playing a beautiful game, but there was a part of me that always hoped for more, and so there was a part of me that was always a fool."
Mm.
I don't know. Anyway, I like that quote about
No, I did too. I think
him and
it
Denna.
says a lot.
Yeah, it sums it up. I mean, he is being a fool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
That's what happens.
All right, should we move on to Elodin?
Yeah.
So he knows what a shade is. He knows about fairy magic.
He also knows about the Adem and the hand speak and everything, which is
That was
Right.
cool.
a little
Yeah,
telling.
that
I
was
thought
a
it was
cool
pretty
little
cool
touch.
too,
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was interesting, and it, you know, there's so many theories about Elodin, saying that he's Tecum, or he's Taborlin the Great, or he's, you know,
Are there
this person,
really?
that yeah.
Wow.
And
Okay.
you know, people make some somewhat convincing arguments, like the Taborlin breaking out from his tower is very similar in a lot of ways to Elodin breaking out of the rookery. And so there's just weird coincidence things like that, but there's a lot of theories about Elodin.
Yeah, I haven't read any actually about him.
Yeah, but
It's-
I can believe it though. It would make sense that there's tons about that dude.
But I honestly think that, I don't know. I don't think that he is. I think he is just what we think he is. Like, I don't know. Like, even reading the theories and stuff, and I don't think that every character is gonna turn out to be this, like,
Something
it's
they're
gonna
not.
have like this big twist or
Yeah.
something. And I really think that Elodin is just Elodin. Like, he's a very good namer. He's, you know, probably part Fae or whatever, but you know, I don't think that he's gonna be anything out of like legend or whatever.
Okay. It's yeah, not everyone can be a twist, right? I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, Loaded is always a delight. And every time he
Yeah.
comes around, I'm like, yes,
Yes.
another Loaded scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really liked the scene where he meets Ari.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
really cool.
Or
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
he had already met Ari.
No,
sort
yeah,
of,
he
but
knows
like,
Ari for sure.
but like, this is the first time that he's gotten this close to her and has been able to have like a conversation with her.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's when he tells Quoth that like, oh, you have an uncanny gift for naming if you named her Ari.
Yeah.
And then he accepts him into his class. But the part I really liked about that scene was just kind of this tension when she leaves to go get something, and he's like, or Quoth is like,
Yeah.
like, you cannot tell anybody.
Yeah.
And Elodin's like, or what?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
and Quoth is like, please, like, you cannot tell anybody. And he's like, what will you do to me if I do?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Quoth is like, if you tell somebody, I will probably do something really stupid and both of us will end up hurt or worse.
Mm.
And he's like, what an honest and forthright threat. Usually there's
Yeah.
much more bravado and
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yep.
and so I loved the tension to that, because for a minute you're thinking,
Oh, snap.
like, maybe we don't know Elodin that well. What is he actually going to do about this? Like, does he want to put her in the rookery? And so it's kind of this tension building moment. And then he's like, no, I I would never want to put her in the rookery, not if she
Crockery.
didn't crockery, not if she absolutely didn't need it. And so I just love that moment where we get to see behind the curtain a little bit with him.
Yeah.
And then Quoth is like, you need to bring her clothes, like she needs clothes and she needs food. And Loden's like, she won't take anything from me.
Yeah.
And Quoth is like, he's like, if I give them to you, can you give them to her? And I just really liked that scene. It was just kind of like an honest, heartfelt scene between the two of them. And then they go, he's like, Loden's like, what? You're still not allowed in the library? And Quoth is like, he's like, no, he still doesn't let me in. And so they walk over to his window.
I forgot about it. Yeah, this was so great.
It's so funny.
And,
oh man.
And what's his name? Is it Arwell or
Lauren? Master
Lauren.
Lauren.
And
you're right.
And he's like, he's just acting like this is nothing out of the usual. Because for a Loden, it probably isn't
totally
anything abnormal.
Totally normal. Yeah.
And
just
so
go and knock on his window.
And so Lauren was like, I was gonna suspend him for a year and a day. And Loden says something like, how storybook? And and he's like, I raised him to Elir or whatever, and I need him to be able to have access to the library. And it kind of goes back and forth for a little bit, but then it ends up with Loden saying, let him back into the library, and if he does anything amiss, you can cut off both his thumbs. And Quoth is just like,
he's like, what?
And Lauren, like, doesn't Lauren like actually think about it? Then like,
okay, fair enough.
Accept it. Like,
that sounds good. That sounds great.
Right.
And then like as they're walking away, Quoth is like, you can't just like offer up my thumbs. Like, how can you do that?
It's like, well, you're not gonna,
Loden's like, well, if you don't plan on doing anything amiss in the library, then you won't have any problems. And Quoth is just like, what, dude?
Oh man, yeah, that was good.
That was a great part.
Really
I had forgotten about that.
Loden's class, I loved Loden's class. Like when he kind of like continually does the thing like that he did in the last book, like, but there are other ways to understanding. Look at the sky, blue, 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 like that. I love that whole part. Thing.
Yeah, blue, blue, blue.
And he kind of does like similar things in this class where he's like, if I throw this rock at you guys at exactly 30 degrees or whatever, and it makes this specific arc, where exactly will your hand have to be able to pick up this rock or to catch the rock? And they're all like trying to figure it out on paper or whatever. And he like, then finally Loden opens the door and he yells to somebody. He's like, hey, Jason, or whatever.
Yeah.
And the kid comes in and he's like, catch, and like throws the rock at him. And the kid just catches it. And he's like, congratulations. He's like patting him. And he's like, he comes back in the room. He's like, can anybody tell me how in all his wisdom he knew where the rock would be at exactly the right time and caught it right in the middle of the air? And, you know, it made everybody laugh and it proved his point. But oh my God, I love those kind of scenes so much because most of the time he just seems so crazy, but what he's really trying to show them, actually, I have a good quote about it. So this is an example of kind of like the subtleties with which he's trying to teach them. So he's describing this scenario with Fella and Quoth at the front of the classroom, like talking about if they were to court each other and all these very like subtle things that happen within courting, like them slowly like falling in love or whatever. And so then he's like, he's describing this scenario, and then he's like, and then like they turn towards each other, they look at each other in the eyes, and Quoth grabs her breasts. And it was like this sudden like shock. And then he turns to Quoth and he's like, I am trying to seduce you into understanding. I am trying to teach you. Quit grabbing at my tits.
Yeah.
And I'm just
yep.
like, dude, that's such a great
That's a load in.
example. He's trying to show them that the path to understanding is a slow one, and many subtle things need to happen before they will eventually get it.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, we learn later what a load-in is doing is providing the class with questions, much like Quoth's father, trying to push them to asking their own questions, driving them more and more persistently to find their own answers,
Yes.
ultimately to awaken their sleeping mind.
Yeah.
And I think the lesson there is the harder we hunt, the more we learn. So the only thing I have to say about Mayor Alvaron is his house colors are blue and white. Did you guys notice when those two guys came into the Waystone Inn and they beat up Coat, what their colors were?
Oh, I did
No,
not.
I
no.
did not.
Blue
They're
and white.
at
blue
all.
and white.
Oh, whoa.
And so, I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory that Mayor Alvaron has become the king.
Because
Oh, okay.
because
see-
Kavoth killed Roderick. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes total sense.
Roderick
Yeah.
being the current king of Ventus.
Yes.
Right,
Yes. And
yeah.
Alvaron then taking his place after he. Okay, that makes total sense. He's. I mean, King Killer Chronicles, right? King Killer
Yeah.
Chronicles.
Yeah.
It
It's
makes
It's got to
sense.
happen
It
at
makes
some
sense.
point,
Yeah,
right?
Gotta happen
yeah,
at some point.
Exactly.
This part of our discussion with Sim and Phila,
Sure.
Sure thing.
did you guys notice all the stuff we learn about him in this book?
Yeah, I mean, his family is he's royalty, right? Like
Yeah.
He's
to a degree, he's royalty. His father or something is not a baron, but he's got some sort of title.
Isn't he a
It's
duke?
he could be.
I
I
thought
honestly
so,
don't
yeah,
know.
and then-
Yeah, I honestly can't remember.
And then but Simon is not like a firstborn son, I don't think. So he's
Right.
Yeah, so his brothers and sisters will take because he even talks about that because Quoth tries to bring up his family and then what's the other
Willem.
guy's Willem is like, don't talk to him about his family. And he brings up the fact that like you're asking him, he's like, yeah, my brothers and sisters will take the inheritance and this and that, and I'll just be here or whatever else he says.
Yeah.
So he's definitely like lower on the line of royalty, I would say, in the sense of family and positioning. Yeah, I don't
And his father didn't want him to go to the
university.
Arcanum. Like
Oh, okay.
yes, that was a point of
yeah, because his father, like, he wanted him, I forget what else he wanted him to do. He wanted him to do something else, something in the court. And Sim was like, I don't want to do that. I want to go and study all these things at the university and be a poet and all these other things. And so I thought that was kind of interesting how much we learn about him in that way, and that his father was not a kind person to him because he
Yeah.
was not like a firstborn son.
Yeah.
But also he grew up, I forget what the doctor's name was, but there was a doctor who would perform experiments on people.
Oh,
and
it
that's
start- it
how
started with a G. The
Yeah.
lands were with a G. I can't remember the name, but
that's
yeah.
right.
but he would perform these experiments on people, and that's how they have the medicine that they do now, because he did all these things, these horrible things that led to good medicine
For the greater good, right?
yeah. And so
Amir.
yeah, and so Sim and Quoth have like this big like kind of back and forth about, like, he's like, don't ask me about that, like, don't, like, stop idolizing this man, like, you have no idea what it was like growing up near that. And then Quoth realizes that Sim's family was probably a part of that. His ancestors or whatever were probably a part of that to some extent, because they would have been the nobility in the area that had to go pick up these people to take to this scientist, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought that was something that was really, really interesting. And I would be surprised if Sim's family in general and his relation to that, I would be surprised if it doesn't come up later again.
For sure.
So I have this quote that was, one of my one of my favorites. It was when they were in the archives and they found all the pieces to the gram, and Sim was the only one who could read the schematic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And she's like, how do you know that? He's like, oh, it's the same thing as this poetry I like. And so
Vintage
he
poetry, right?
yeah. And so he like recites like this poem about her, like right off the cuff. And it says like she gave him this look like she was seeing him for the very first time.
Yeah.
And quote says, it was worth the whole awful, irritating time spent searching the archives just to watch that moment happen. It was worth blood and the fear of death just to watch her fall in love with him, just a little, just the first faint breath of love, so light she probably didn't notice it herself.
Yeah.
It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a crack of thunder with a bolt of lightning following. It was more like when flint strikes steel and the spark fades almost too fast for you to see. But still, it's there, down where you can't see, kindling.
Yes.
And I'm like, man, this book has some fire.
Yeah, dude.
Poetic. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So, I have other like favorite moments of Sim and stuff, but we'll talk about that in the next part of the when we do part 2 for this, in like our favorite moments and stuff, because we'll just end it here and we will come back next week or the week after or something and finish this up.
That sounds good.
All right. Well,
cool.
Thank you guys so much for staying up late with me and talking King Killer. I'm glad we all really enjoyed this book. It's awesome to see Chris getting into it for the first time, and it's just a ton of fun. So, all right, guys, that is going to wrap us up there. Thank you all for watching and joining us for this discussion of this amazing book and series. Hopefully we'll be able to do a Doors of Stone discussion in the next 5 years.
In our lifetime.
Yeah.
In our lifetime.
But until then, we will see you on part 2 to this this discussion, and we'll also see you on one of our next episodes, which is the Land series by Alaron Kong.
MD, yes, sir.
Which it's Gabe's first pick for his month of
one of my
recommendations.
My absolute favorite series of all time is The Land.
Don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons on your way out. And you can also follow us on Twitter at Files Fantasy, or just look up Fantasy Files Podcast in the search. Until next time, quit grabbing at my tits. Now that we've talked about bathwater, I'm really not sure how to move on from that.